Okay, guys, and we're back with another video. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stoner podcast, and today I'm joined with a very special guest, Andrew from Boxing Bros UK.
Oh,
Now, Boxing
bless you.
Bros are a great YouTube channel, and I've been fans of for a while, and there's no better time than now to talk about all the craziness that's going on in the world of boxing. So, Andrew, how are you, mate?
Oh. Yeah, bless you. Thanks for that introduction. Thanks for that
Of
introduction.
course.
Yeah, lovely to be on your channel. We've collaborated before, and yeah, this guy Seth knows his stuff. So if you haven't subscribed and all that stuff, all the usual stuff, click it. Takes 2 seconds, get it done. But yeah, all good. Lots of good and bad nonsense going on in boxing, as is always the case. Seth, I'm I'm
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll be getting into it.
we definitely will be. So, first off, I know you guys made a video about this. I loved this video, but I wanted to get your opinion on Daniel Dubois leaving his head coach, Don Charles.
Mm. Where do we start with this? I mean, Chris done a really good video on this.
Yeah.
Actually, I couldn't make it for that when he stepped in and done a good video. I kind of broke the news to him because it was kind of drip fed a little bit. There weren't that many kind of publications reporting it, and then all of a sudden it kind of broke out. Little bit of a strange one for me. I mean, most of the time you change trainers, and again, I'm reiterating a bit what Chris said. You look for a trainer to give you something different. And we were speaking with Jamie TKV, a bit of a name drop here, apologies,
Yeah.
but we were speaking to him last week, and he said the reason Fabio came over to Ben Davison's stable was to add a bit of IQ, to add a bit of intelligence to his game, because of that lack of amateur experience.
Mm,
Got that great equalising shot and power, as we know.
yeah.
I know we didn't see it in there with Justice Hooney, but I think the idea is that Ben Davison's going to add that analytical aspect to Fabio's game. Whether it's kind of going with a Kronk style coach or whoever it might be to add something to your arsenal.
Yeah.
Dubois went to Don Charles for, I would imagine, that mentorship, that arm around the shoulder, that father figure. We saw his heart improve, his resilience prove against Hrgovic
Yeah.
as a prime example. Um, to sit on his shots a bit more, close the gap better, all those things Don Charles is good at. Going to Tony Sims, of who generally has matchroom stable fighters as well. Very experienced coach. Had Anthony Joshua back in the day, Seth, didn't he? He's
Yeah.
got Conor Ben,
Yeah.
been there, done it. But I'll kind of put this back to you. What what does that move? What is that move about? Because I don't really understand what Tony Sims is necessarily going to give Dubois that he hasn't already got. You know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Tony Sims, it does almost feel a bit flavour of the month ish. You're seeing
Mm,
a couple of fighters go over to Tony Sims's gym. Conor Ben, obviously, he's
mm,
been there for a while. But you've seen a number of fighters joining there. I don't know. Stylistically, I don't think Daniel Dubois is going to improve much under a guy like Tony Sims.
mm.
I think maybe naturally you'll get a new coach bounce and you may see Daniel
Yeah.
Dubois maybe improve some fundamentals, but largely we
Mm,
saw Daniel Dubois' best performances under Don Charles. Now, there was a
yeah.
lot of media backlash when it was announced that Daniel Dubois will be leaving Don Charles, and I'm thinking, I understand it and I
Mm,
don't. Of course, under Don Charles, he lost twice to Usyk. But in my
yeah.
opinion, it's a fight Daniel Dubois is always going to lose. In terms of boxing ability, Usyk is just levels beyond him, and unless
Yeah.
you're going to land that equalizing punch that's going to stop Usyk, you're not going to beat him. I don't think any heavyweight's going to beat him unless they can stop him. No
Yeah.
heavyweight's going to outwork him. So you look at that and you're like, well, it's almost given, not a given. You're a world champion. You always come to fight. You want to win the fight, but losing to Usyk, there's no shame in that. Of course, he beat Hrgovic, he beat Big Baby Miller, and he beat Anthony Joshua. Three amazing wins. I say all
Mm,
of that to say Don Charles isn't the only head coach out there. He's not the only world class head coach out there. Of course, you've got your Tony Sims. You've got, if you wanted to go to America, you've got your Bomac, your Derek James. You've got your Sugar
yeah.
Hill, which honestly,
Yeah.
when it got announced that Daniel Dubois will be leaving Don Charles, I was thinking if he could link up with Sugar Hill, that would be a match made in heaven in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I thought the same, Steph. I
Yeah,
thought that might be a good matchup, you
yeah,
know? Really dig in. Sometimes it's about, and it's like with football teams, isn't it? Is it,
mm,
do you try and do plan A better? do you double down on what you're good at already and accentuate that further? You know, the whole min-maxing thing,
Yeah.
or do you try and add something to your arsenal? I think people like Anthony Joshua, I think he's almost in his head too much. I think he's a real
Mm,
thinker. I think he in another career he'd be a good psychotherapist, wouldn't he? I think he
yeah.
loves to look at the details of stuff,
Yeah.
but he chops and changes too much. I think he overthinks it. Sometimes you've just got to go, look, not everybody can be an Alexander Usyk,
No.
Dmitry Bivol, the second coming of Muhammad Ali and Floyd Mayweather Jr. Sometimes it's like, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, I want to do that better. I want to be able to be a better pressure fighter and maybe shore up my defense a bit better. You know,
Yeah.
I think sometimes fighters and stuff, they're overthinking stuff,
Yeah.
wanting to try and add too much that they're not is doesn't really suit their style, Seth. You know.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think Tony Sims. I don't think it's necessarily a bad fit, but I struggle to see it being a real improvement on Don Charles. I guess, like I said, getting a different look, having a different voice in your corner.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, it can be a bad thing. Actually, I was going to say it can never be a bad thing, but it very well can be a bad thing if he takes the wrong fight and has a bad training camp and has a bad performance. Then will he be looking to change coaches again? And then maybe what, three coaches in three
Yeah.
fights? Then it's a problem. I know Anthony Joshua, like you said, would switch coaches a lot, which is probably
Yeah.
to his detriment, in my opinion. Probably to his detriment because
Yeah.
we saw when he was trained by, I believe, was it Robert Garcia?
Yes, for a very short spell, wasn't it?
Yes. And we saw great boxing from Anthony Joshua. We saw some
Mm,
great boxing from
mm,
Anthony Joshua. But again, it's that sort of thing where you're talking about, do you want to make plan A better? Because the way Anthony Joshua is, we saw him sort of evolve throughout his career. Early on in his
yeah.
career, he was big, muscle bound, still muscle bound now, but he would run through
Yeah.
guys and knock guys out.
Yeah.
I think around the
Yeah.
time he fought the Klitschko's, and then would go on his world title run from there. He sort of had to change that up because he knew that at the top level, these big guys they can bang just as hard as he can, and they will drop him.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Daniel Dubois sort of been through that as well in
Mm,
some ways, but he's never really evolved his style. Really, he's sort of. I mean, Anthony Joshua, we saw him sort of scale it back a bit, and particularly against like Joseph Parker, really start to box a bit more, and even in the Usyk 2 fight,
yeah.
tried to box a bit more. And funny enough, I
Yeah.
actually say uh, Anthony Joshua's best boxing performance was probably in that second fight against Usyk, and he lost. Which goes to
Yeah.
show
I
how good
agree.
Usyk is.
Actually.
Really goes to show how good Usyk is. But I say all that to say, Daniel Dubois, for the most part of his career, has been a similar sort of fighter. There have been tweaks, and like you said, we've seen his heart improve. We've seen him sit down on his shots a
Yeah.
bit more. But in him as a boxer, in terms of his style, he is what he is. So Don Charles was
Yeah.
a good coach that was able to get the best out of Daniel Dubois, in my opinion. I am not sure if Tony
Yeah.
Sims can do that, but like you said, he's an experienced coach. He would have seen big punchers. He would have seen fighters like Daniel Dubois come through, probably not at his level
Yeah.
in terms of a world class heavyweight. I mean, he coached Anthony Joshua to be fair, so that's as good an
Yeah.
experience you can get.
Mm,
But we'll see. Honestly, we'll see. It's interesting. It's a new move. It's going to keep Daniel Dubois in the UK, which I'm imagining was his main goal because if he wants to go to America, there's a plethora of world class coaches over there. But clearly, he wants to stay in the
oh,
UK.
absolutely. I was going to ask
Yeah,
you, Seth. I don't know if you had any more questions on this topic before we
yeah,
move on, but the real big sticking point for me, and you're quite an analytical boxing analyst
yeah,
as well, and you look a little bit more the mentality side of things. But
yeah,
the other major elephant in the room for me is Stan, his dad.
yeah,
Now, there's been a lot of talk around this. Now, if Don Charles, we've met him a couple of times. We've met George Fox, his son, a few times. Don Charles has always struck me as a kind of mentor, father figure, arm round the shoulder. I'll look after it, the kind of father or mate you'd want.
mm,
And Dubois clearly, for me, does struggle a little bit mentally in the ring. Don't know
yeah,
what's going on outside of it. You know, whether there's some mental health, learning disabilities, autism, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate.
yeah,
Um, for me, if Don Charles is struggling to get Daniel Dubois' focus in that corner and that corner work, now I look back on those fights. Daniel's constantly looking around, being distracted,
yeah,
looking to his dad outside the ring. For me, as an elite sportsman, you should be laser focused on what your coach and your corner is saying to you. You're in there with the greatest fighter of this generation, bar none. If it's me in there, I want to be absolutely going back over the game plan. Daniel, Andrew, what you doing?
Mm.
What's going on with the guard? Why are you not throwing your jab out? Why are you not punching from this out? What's going on here? Not half listening to Don, half listening to his dad. It's chaos, Seth.
Yeah.
Absolute chaos. What is Tony? How is Tony Sims going to go in there? And what is it going to be the same situation again? He's not going to have any control over the camp. His dad's doing it. To me, I don't know it's going to be any different unless Tony Sims, because part of the reason why he left Shane McGuigan, allegedly, from what I gather, is that Shane said, this is my camp, my fighter, my information. I don't want any external issues going on.
Yeah.
And they obviously didn't like that.
Yeah.
So what's going to be any different, Seth? That's my biggest problem with all this. You can have as many trainers as you bloody like,
I
but
agree.
that issue's still present.
It is, and honestly, I think it's an issue that is going to be there for the rest of his career. Like the
Mm.
relationship
Mm.
with a father and son is sacred, as we know, it is sacred. But
Of course.
particularly with Daniel Dubois and his dad, it seems like it's a more, it's just a deeper relationship than a normal father son.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, in a fight, it's absolute chaos anyway. Let alone fighting the best of a generation, and you're looking around looking to your dad for corner advice. It was a mess. Honestly, if you're doing that in a world
Yeah.
championship fight, that you're probably that's probably it. You know, that's probably just how it is for you.
Don't bear thinking about, mate, does
Yeah,
it? You're thinking you're already struggling.
yeah,
You're already in there against someone because what Usyk did, he mesmerises you, Steph. Right?
yeah,
That lead down. There's a lot of modern fighters that use this kind of floaty kind of reflex twitch style low lead hand, but that right hand of his, right, if you
mm,
actually, I was watching the Bellew fight again, and
yeah,
he sort of circles it
yep,
around like this. I don't know if your viewers are sort of can see me, but he sort of circles the right hand around,
yeah,
feints to go to the body, feints to go to the head, and what happens is people start biting on the feints. They start, and then they think, oh, he's doing that circle thing. Oh no, he's hit me with a left.
yep,
It absolutely drains you mentally. It's what people don't realise.
no,
It drains the fighter mentally because you don't know what he's going to do. Then you don't know what you're biting on the feints, and then he hits you, and it just empties your tank.
yeah,
So Dubois is already overwhelmed in there. He's not got the IQ because he's a power-based, come-forward fighter, as we
yes,
know. He's got a loose guard, not a very good guard, and then he's got all that going on. The guy was there for the slaughter, I'm afraid to say, in that fight. He was
yeah.
there for the slaughter, and that's exactly what transpired.
It's true. It was exactly that.
Yeah.
It's it was always going to be an uphill battle for Dubois because, like you said,
Mm.
Usyk, he uses that lead hand so brilliantly. It's
Mm.
you've never seen any other heavyweight do it like that, honestly. And I know often in fan bases in the community we'll have conversations about how does Usyk rank against all-time heavyweights, and I struggle to see many all-time heavyweights beating him purely because of that pressure. And he drags you into deep waters.
Oh,
No heavyweight really does that,
yeah.
you know.
There's no. I think there's maybe the names we already know, Seth. I
Yeah,
think Lennox Lewis and Ali for me. You can make cases for Joe Frazier, for
yeah,
Evander Holyfield, these people, but I think he finds a way of beating them. I know
yeah,
you can't compare generations. I get that, but
mm,
I think the size of Lennox Lewis and the jab and the range and power would be a problem. And I think Muhammad Ali, because he matches him for skill and speed, and
yeah,
outside of those two, he works every other heavyweight in any generation out for
yeah.
me. He's that good.
No, I agree. I agree. But back to Daniel Dubois.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you think long term is this who's going next coach is going to be, or do you think it's going to be depending on each performance that he has going forward? He'll stick with Tony Sims. If it's a bad performance, do you think he'll stick with Tony Sims regardless? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think there's a couple of factors. One, you've obviously got the masterful Frank Warren and his matchmaking, and
Yeah,
I think I remember him vaguely saying after the fight that no, he's going to go in with a big fight. I don't know if that's just reactionary talk. So I'm
yeah,
like, oh, because I was thinking maybe a couple of fights to rebuild. He's only 27. That's what I would do. I know it's a bit boring and typical, but I think he needs a couple of good wins against very winnable opponents that are still well matched in terms of looking good on the CV. I think if he goes in there with straight away with Tony Sims without having worked on a great deal over the next 6 to 7 months and gets in there with someone, I'm just throwing names out there,
Yeah,
Parker, Cabiel, even, Bacoli,
yeah,
even like a Michael Hunter, people like that, tricky fighters like Michael Hunter
mm,
would probably work Dubois out. Michael Hunter's elusive. I know he's getting on. I think all those sorts of opponents, yeah, they look good on paper and it's another big fight, but they're dangerous, dangerous fights that are very losable for Dubois. So I think it depends on the matchmaking. Also, um, I think if whoever he does fight, if he has a stinker again, or the mentality just isn't there, and he quits. I'm not going into whether he quit against Usyk. I think I personally didn't think that he did, but I can understand why people did.
yeah,
But if he quits again, struggles in there, gets pulled out the fight maybe early by Sims in his corner, he'll probably change again, Seth. Probably,
yeah.
I mean, nothing would surprise me in boxing. It's often a shit show with this sort of stuff. It really is.
Yes, yeah. No, it is. It is.
But what do you think? What do you think?
I tend to agree. It's hard because Daniel Dubois is undeniably at the world level now. Now it's always
Mm,
tough to see a guy when he's been operating at world level. Even before this Usyk fight, he's been fighting the top guys: Hergovic, Anthony Joshua, Gerald Miller. It's always tough to see a guy take a step down again. I mean,
yeah.
it sounds like maybe we're suggesting someone outside, the top 10, top 15, potentially to start to rebuild him. But
Mm,
Frank Warren, as much as he is a masterful matchmaker in terms of building guys up, he also knows that he knows where his bread is buttered, and he knows that Daniel Dubois is in his prime. He's in his money making prime right now.
true.
Potentially on the back end after getting knocked out by Usyk, but for the most part, will still be quite a big name, particularly in the UK. He could against a decent opponent could quite easily sell out the O2 in my opinion. I don't think he's on the level of Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury where he's selling out Wembley or Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I don't think he's on that level in terms of superstardom. And after two
Yeah.
losses to Usyk, I probably don't think he'll ever get there now.
No, maybe not.
But potentially your Bacoli's, because Bacoli's very you can catch him, you can find his chin. FA Jagba had a lot of joy against
Mm,
Martin Bacoli early on in that fight. Even an FA
mm,
Jagba,
mm.
that sort of level, I think would make sense to come back against. And then if you can beat them, then you're right back in the mix at the top of the division again.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a third
I
Usyk
like the
fight.
Ajagba fight. I
Yeah,
like the Ajagba fight. I don't think Ajagba would take it unless there's a lot of money, but I quite like that. It's quite similar stylistically. I
yeah,
mean, it might complement each other quite
yeah.
well. Both hit hard, good right hand. Yeah, I mean that it wouldn't. Jagba's not a massive name, Seth, but
No.
that would be, you know,
I,
up there.
I think that fight could make sense. And I think it could be a decent payday for a Jaguar as well. They do it in the O2. If he could sell out the O2, that's more than a decent payday for both guys. And like I said,
And what
stylistically,
if the Jagba won? It puts him on the map, Seth, doesn't it?
it does. I mean, he's sort of halfway there because the fight against Bacoli was that a draw.
Yeah,
That was a draw
yeah.
because
Well,
Bacoli,
I thought a Jagba snuck a win actually,
as did
but yeah,
I.
I think it was a draw. Yeah.
Yeah, as did I. So I think they either want to run that back, but I'm not hearing many talks about a Bacoli via Jagba 2 rematch. So if both guys want to
Mm,
move on, then a Jagba could fight Daniel Dubois. Even Bacoli could fight Daniel Dubois. I think both guys would be exciting fights. But it's a
yeah,
sort of fight where after a loss against Usyk, you really need to see what Daniel Dubois has left in the tank, really. And
yeah,
there's no point in him
yeah.
really facing a European or British level fighter and maybe banging them out in 2 or 3 rounds and then going back to world level because it's
Um,
just too much of a jump between competition, in my opinion. But I don't
yeah.
mind the idea of him facing someone who's just on the fringes of the top 10. We'll talk about Moses soon because Moses has broken into that top 10 and knocked Ajagba out of the ring top 10. That is.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it really depends. It really depends on the opponent. I'd like to see them do that. Have someone fringe top 10 and then get him back in there. Honestly, it's difficult because Usyk's got all the belts. That's
Mm.
the problem. What are you going to do? Have him become a mandatory and then fight Usyk for the third time and lose again? You know,
Well, yeah, exactly. Well,
unless Usyk
Usyk's probably going
retires.
to retire within
Yeah,
the next year or two anyway,
yeah,
which I hope he does.
yeah,
I think he'll probably have one more fight. So once those belts are fragmented, then it's open season. That's
Opens up
for
the
sure.
division again, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah, anyone's get.
yeah. Well, and to be fair, in a few years, how old's Dubois now? Did you say 28?
27 nearly. He's got to be nearly
Yeah,
28,
nearly
Seth,
28.
I'd
So
imagine,
like
around that.
in
Yeah,
2 years' time, he's
yeah,
30, and open season in the heavyweight division. I could very well see Daniel Dubois claiming a world championship again, even under Tony Sims,
yeah, absolutely.
because his
Yeah,
power was
I agree.
undeniable. Power was undeniable, and he's already knocked out Anthony Joshua. Um, he's probably the biggest puncher in the division. You've got your Fabio
Yeah,
Wardleys there, your Moses, of
great
course.
jab as well.
Yeah,
Got a terrific jab, Dubai.
yeah,
Really, really solid, hard jab. You know, Richie Woodall,
yeah,
the Olympic trainer, he had AJ's a little bit of insight if they haven't seen this from Richie Woodall for your viewers. He said Dubois had the hardest jab he's ever had on the pads.
yeah,
And his jab, and I'll say this very clearly, Richie Woodall said, was as hard as most heavyweights' right hands, straight rights, he's ever faced. Now,
yeah,
what does that tell you? And that's just a jab,
yeah,
the way he puts mustard on it. And he said AJ straight right was the hardest right hand he's ever faced on the pad. So gives you a little indicate. Yep, very flawed fighters, to both of them.
yes,
Heart, chin wise, we know all that. But I tell you what, in terms of physical specimens, you don't get athleticism. You don't really get much better than those two. That's
no.
for damn sure.
And both guys who have, gone the distance multiple times in their career. I mean, actually, Daniel Dubois, most of his fights have ended in knockout, but Anthony Joshua gone the distance multiple times. Um,
Yeah,
naturally, when you're that
yeah,
size, it's always difficult to make it through a 12-round fight. You're gonna dip,
yeah,
you're gonna get tired. I mean, the only guys that don't really get
yeah.
tired are Fury and Usyk, who are naturally right at the top of the division partially because of their gas tank and they're able to go the distance every time.
Fury's a surprising one. I don't know how at 6'8", six
Honestly,
foot nine, and
yeah,
19 stone, right? Yeah, he doesn't have a great deal of muscle on his
no,
frame. We know. I don't want to go into, start calling out for his physical conditioning, but
yeah,
sometimes just get these genetic anomalies where you think, really? I mean, he should be gassing after 2 rounds,
yeah,
but he don't.
no,
I think his cardio is, and the work he does in his cardio
mm,
is exceptional. It must be.
yeah, must be, yeah. Going for
Yeah.
those long runs in the hills and the forests up
Yeah.
north, yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. But good luck to Dubois. I hope it works under Sims. I'm a bit surprised. I've got my anyone knows who watches my channel. I am a little bit cynical. I do tend to kind of wear my heart on my sleeve with my opinions. I'm a little bit bemused by it, but
Mm.
I hope he can come back if he wants to do it, and good luck to him. You know.
Definitely. And I think, like we're saying, there's definitely a foundation of a good boxer there for Daniel Dubois. Big puncher, strong jab, physical specimen, like we've said. Can Tony Sims take him to
Yeah.
that next level? We'll find out. We'll find out.
Mhm. Yeah, indeed.